talk about parent things, to bring in a youth guy to talk about adult things. The reason that we're going to bring this up tonight is because there's no way to rectify the condition of the youth without addressing the condition of the parents. There's no magic cure. There's no special button. It doesn't exist. There's not a school. There's not a youth director. There's not a YouTube video. There's not an imam. There's no magic cure to flip the switch for youth. Sometimes we wish it existed, but it doesn't. But that doesn't mean a solution for the things that we see with our kids is impossible to attain. It just means we need to take the proper steps towards it. So without further ado, tonight we're going to talk about the big three. Now, I love interacting. So I hope you interact with me because I plan on asking you all some questions. And please don't get offended if the same three people who raise their hand don't get answered, and don't be offended if I call on you even if you don't raise your hand. Because I want us to interact with each other to have a very healthy and meaningful discussion tonight. We have an age-old dilemma. We live in 2019, but the things we see today are not things that we did not see yesterday, or yesteryear, or millennia even. The stuff that's going on now is the same stuff that's been going on for a long time. So now, we got some kids in here, and I don't know if our parents are aware, but tonight you will be aware that at school they have something called a safe space, where people who identify as different things, that like different things, may be confused about different things, are safe to talk about those things. Now, if that's what they have at a public school, then the house of Allah should be more safe. So I'm going to ask the kids a question, and inshallah, no one here will judge them for the answers they give. Because I'm also going to ask some parents some questions, and no one here should judge the answers that they give either. Okay? Good. So kids, if there was anything that you could say about your parents, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Laughter. Nervous laughter. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Yes. Caring. Allahu Akbar. See, it's very easy to think that it's just going to be something negative. But caring. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your parents. Ameen. Yes. They want what's best for you. Protective. Allahu Akbar. Now, who else? The hayat is kicking in. It's like, okay, do I have to say something positive? Look, we're not here to bash anyone, but we can shoot straight. Our qawl can be sadid. We can be accurate without being negative. So tell me about your parents. What's the first thought that comes to your mind when you think about your parents? Yes. Loving. Allahu Akbar. Now you see the one that's past college and the ones that haven't made it to middle school, positive. Now that middle school and high school, college age, they're the ones that are here that aren't saying anything. The little ones loving, caring. The older ones want what's best for you. It's that tender space in between. Yes. Narrow-minded, and this is a parent saying that. And he is a son. I mean, alhamdulillah. Thank you for acknowledging that. Jazakallahu khairan. Now, parents, would you agree with this sentiment? Yes. Yes, okay. Jazakallahu khairan. We appreciate the parents stepping up and talking about the parents. So we'll quit picking on the kids for a little bit. For now. Now, parents, what would you say about your kids? Now, I only see the uncles. I'm sure the aunties may have a lot more to say. Uncles. Now, we have parents talk about what parents are like. Do we have kids that will talk about what kids are like? That's some good akhlaq right there, mashallah. How is it? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Disappointment? Parents disappointed in their children? Okay. Lost in video games. Fortnite. Procrastinating. Yes. You said your kids are in the masjid most of the time. We're going to navigate a little bit. I hope the camera navigate too, inshallah. Just because I want to make sure I can hear you. Okay. One more sentiment that parents have on kids, on their kids. Yes? Prioritize, meaning they do prioritize or they need to. Priorities are out of whack. So what are they focused on? Girls? Games?
Fun. Dunya fun.
Dunya. Girls, games, and dunya. You see, it's not easy sometimes to break the ice and have these types of talks, but it's healthy and we need it. It's a forgotten sunnah of the Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alaihi wasallam that people felt like they could talk to him about anything. And this is the type of atmosphere that we need to create in the masjid and between the elders and between the youth. Now, let's ask everyone all together, what are your sentiments then on society? Because that plays a role in it too. It's not just kids with their parents, parents with their kids, but it's both in society. What are your thoughts on the world that we live in? Shaitan. Yes, sir. A lot of pressure in today's world. Unbalanced. Fast-paced. People learn things much younger now than they did before. I'll tell you a harrowing statistic in psychology. Understanding that we're in the house of Allah and using vernacular that only those who are of a certain age should understand. In today's society in the U.S., the average age that children are exposed to illicit, inappropriate, and lewd images is 8 years old. Because without safe search, if you type in one letter in search, you may be taken down a ride because of the internet. So the information superhighway, it also fast tracks how quickly people grow up. So now, when we look at kids and parents, parents and kids, and both in society, what would you say is the missing link between both of them? Communication. That was actually the answer, the only word that came to my mind. Kids not being able to communicate with their parents, parents not being able to communicate with their kids, and neither of them understanding how that translates to the society that we live in today. Now, taking it even further, we have to have some hard conversations. There are things that we need to be willing to talk about. Because can you imagine if you went to a doctor and you had all the symptoms of cancer, but he never ever used the C word? How could you be cured if you don't know what the sickness is? Can you imagine needing surgery and the doctor never ever says the S word out of fear? How are we going to get it done? Sometimes by not having the hard conversations and not being willing to talk about these things, we see the problems persist, but really we just got to be able to communicate about it. Now, when we address this generational gap, as it's coined, the question then becomes who actually knows best? The kids who are plugged into the technology and have things on their phone that you couldn't even pronounce, even if it was right in front of your face, and even if you knew how to unlock it, you wouldn't know where to go first? Or the ones who have been there and done that and seen that? The ones who were around back in the day whenever if you wanted to start the internet, you would hear some stuff come from your phone. The ones who lived in a time where the only way you could get from point A to point B is if you memorized the directions. Where the only way you could call someone is if you memorize the numbers. The people who have been there and done that, seen the trends come and go. That generational gap of who actually knows best is a big part of the miscommunication. But we also have to address the tide of the times, the world that we live in today. How do we connect with each other based on the world that we live in? Or how do we separate from each other because of the things we see in the world? And we have to find active strategies on how to fix these problems. Because not talking about the darkness of the internet and the things that people can fall into does not mean that just because they don't hear about it from you, that they won't find out about it the hard way. So the societal impact that we see when it comes to the big three, is it a conversation of nature or nurture? Is it, okay, well, my kids, they live in the West and they're exposed to all of these things, and because they go to public school, they see all of this stuff. Because they're people in an environment, as social scientists coin it, because they're in those negative environments, they come out negative. Would you say that that's accurate? Now, a lot of people, they do feel that way. How many of you know, how many people do you know, they took their kids back home? Back home. You know, when kids are back home, they start to shiver. Lack of communication, like we mentioned, yeah. But there's also a stance in social science that says, no, it's not that we're organisms in an environment, but in fact that we're environed organisms. We are organisms that impact an environment. Can anyone think of an example in the Quran and the Sunnah that shows that people can rise above the standard of their environment and change it for the better? Well, the Prophet Mohammed is an excellent example of that, because if he was merely a byproduct of his environment, then Islam never would have came out of the land of shirk and turned it into a place of tawheed. Now, obviously, that's a big example. But still, we see credence for both, right? So there becomes these different spheres of existence that we live in. You have your home life, how it is when you are at the crib with your kids, with your family alone. You have your work life, which for the most part, maybe the family has no idea what goes on in a day at work for you. And even kids, whenever they make it to that transition where they're old enough to work, same thing. Parents may have no idea what's happening whenever the kid goes to work, what exists in that 6-hour shift. And then you have school life. Middle school is not like high school, it's not like college. And the things that go on there, do you have kids that tell you everything that happens from the time they got off the bus to the time they made it back home? It's its own world. And it's like everything that happens in it is super important except outside of it. And then you have the Masjid. A good thing, like just as a revert, as someone who became Muslim 6 years ago, I'll tell you, being in a masjid it's actually mind-blowing. 1 month out of the year, Muslims from everywhere, they come to the masjid and they pray at night and they fast all day. And outside of this, wallahi, most people, they have no idea. We think they know, but trust me, they don't. In the city that I became Muslim in, there was a masjid close to the place I used to hang out all the time. I had no idea it was there. No idea. It's like its own world. And then, of course, you have social life. Whenever you go to the dawat, right? Whenever you go and hang out with your friends, do you know what your kids do when they're with their friends? They might as well be off the grid. Not even Siri knows where they're at sometimes, huh? No, Siri knows, right? So now how do we deal with these problems if they all exist in separate spheres, but the only time you see them made manifest is in the house? The stuff that's happening at work finds its way home. You don't know why Baba is so stressed out, but you don't know what Baba is going through at work. You don't know why your kid is so angry, but you don't know what your kid is going through at school. You don't know why your wife is so high-strung, but you have no idea what the sisters got going on in the background. When all of these spheres make themselves evident in different places, Juzita kulla khairin. When all of these things make themselves evident in different places and you only see it in the house, it seems so random. My kids don't listen. My wife doesn't understand. My husband is so stubborn. I don't know where my daughter is. I have no idea what's going on. It seems random, but it's because all of these things are a byproduct of what's happening in different places, but the only time you see it is when you're at home. So how do we address it? Well, first, we have to be willing to take a step back and evaluate things from the position of parents. How do parents think? What do parents feel? You could say that parents, with regards to their kids, they come in 3 categories. This is a generalization. It doesn't cover the full spectrum, but let me just share some of the things that I've heard in my time working with youth and families over the past 5 years in different communities. Let me just share with you some stuff that I've heard. My child wants to be religious, and it scares me. My kid wants to study Islam, and I'm terrified. The kid doesn't understand why. But the mom, she thinks, I just don't want you to be broke. If you become a sheikh, you might be eating yaqeen and iman for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So she's scared. As our brother Jad mentioned, they want the best for you. So whenever you become religious, well, we also live in a world where Islamophobia is very real. I want to wear my topi to school. I want to go to school dressed in a thobe. I want to grow my beard long. No, absolutely not. Do you know where we are? Do you know the world we live in? You're afraid. My child is neglecting their responsibilities for Islam. The more religious my kid becomes, the more lazy they become. Yes, mashallah in the masjid, but astaghfirullah at home. Yeah, they volunteer in the masjid, but have you seen their room? If only they would volunteer to do the dishes or take out the trash. So the more active sometimes they become, the more religious they come sometimes. Sometimes they neglect their responsibilities. This is a constant concern of parents. The more religious my child becomes, the more rebellious my child becomes. The more they learn about the deen, the more they argue with me. They feel like they're the sheikh of the household. I remember whenever they were in diapers, they were the sheikh of nothing but messes. And now they want to tell me this ruling from this sheikh on this madhab versus that one. So you could say that this category are of parents who have kids that want to practice Islam. They want to be overachievers. They want to be from the muhsineen. So these are the concerns that these parents have. But then there's a middle group. My child has so many non-Muslim friends that I'm scared. Anytime I ask them, who are you hanging out with? Brittany, Ashley, Michelle, Jessica, Astaghfirullah. Yeah, I don't know any of these people. What are they into? There's already a stigma of what non-Muslims are like anyways. And you know, if you start to mention Devontae, Deontay, and those guys, it's going to get even scarier. It's a hard conversation, but we have to have it. My son, he only hangs out with black kids. Those kids, those are the reason why he acts like that. So they become afraid. My child isn't praying anymore. When they were in Sunday school, they were so mashallah. Ever since they got to high school, they just stopped praying. My daughter, she used to love hijab, and now she takes it off. And you would be horrified by how many sisters, the minute they get off that bus, they go into school, they just take it off and put it in their backpack. May Allah keep our sisters safe. Ameen. My child doesn't come to the masjid anymore. They become afraid. Why don't they come to the masjid? They're just playing video games all the time. All they do is watch YouTube and Netflix. They watch this newfangled thing, what's it called? The anime? That's all they watch. That's all they do. Or I'm worried about the things that my kids do on this. I have no idea what they're looking at on this, but they're on it all the time. Show me what's on your phone. No! Kid freaks out. I'm scared. Because this is like its own little mini universe. And the last group is my child is irresponsible, lazy, and failing. My kid doesn't do anything. Make dua for my son. Why? He's horrible. Brother, make dua for my daughter. What's going on? Oh, what's not going on? I don't know how to help them, becomes the question. I want them to be here, and I can't even put my hand where they're actually at. My child just doesn't listen. No matter what I say, they just don't listen. They listen to their friends, but they don't listen to me. And last but not least, my kid hates everyone in the family. They fight with their siblings. They yell at their mother. They bicker with their father. They hate everyone. And they're the biggest problem in the household. Does any of this sound familiar? The parental outlook. But how are you supposed to know how to deal with it? Now, see, alhamdulillah, look around. You have youth here. Now the youth know how the parents feel. So now let's address the youth based on how parents feel. First and foremost, being religious shouldn't make you rebellious. That doesn't make any sense. The more you practice Islam, the worse you shouldn't become as a son or a daughter. That doesn't make any sense. The Prophet ﷺ said, hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, narrated by Anas, whoever is pleased to have risk, do you know what risk is? Yes, it's money. It's also marriage. It's also knowledge. Hasanat are provision. All of those things are risk from Ar-Raziq, Khairul Raziqeen, Ar-Razaq. That's how you get it. How? If you want to have your risk expanded, and if you want to have your life extended, because you know the longer you live, the better that is, right? Because no one wants to die young. All you have to do is keep good relations with your family. So if you become religious and the relationship you have with your family suffers, there's something wrong. Because that is what the Prophet ﷺ said. But is that always what we see? See, for the youth who struggle with this problem, let me give you a rational approach to this. If you are a good Muslim and you studying Islam makes like you a better person, then your parents won't have a problem with it. But if you studying Islam makes you some type of way, don't be surprised if they have a problem with it. If the parents saw that you reading Quran in the morning and going to the Masjid all the time and volunteering and all of this stuff also translated to you doing the dishes without having to be told to do it, doing your own laundry, being a little bit more independent in the household, maybe helping when Ammi is cooking, then why are you here? Go to the Masjid. Because they'll see that you practicing Islam is a beneficial thing. Now we'll skip this hadith Qudsi of Abu Hurairah for now, that's in Bukhari and Muslim, but just for the sake of time. But I want you all to know, you will never earn Allah's pleasure through His wrath. And Allah hates it when children are disrespectful to their parents. From Al-Kaba'ir of Imam al-Dhahabi, one of the 7 worst sins you can commit is disrespecting your parents. Now how you think you're going to be quote-unquote religious, quote-unquote practicing, quote-unquote hafid, a sheikh or a sheikha in the making, and your parents are displeased with you? So in order to earn Allah's pleasure, don't earn His wrath by how you treat your parents. And most importantly, I want you to know, the dua of your parents is important for success. Don't you know that the dua your parents make for you is not rejected? So if they're mad at you and making dua against you, no wonder. Oh, just Allah, please keep them every time they go to the masjid. No, you want them to make the dua for you, to grow. Now, this problem with friendships, with Muslims, making friends with non-Muslims is an ongoing issue. Because in a lot of cases, we see that the youth are living double lives. How they are at home, how they are at the masjid is completely different than how they are at school. I know because I go to their schools. They're very different. But the thing is, you have to create an environment where they're at least willing to talk about those things. If you take a path to try to understand them and spend some time with them, then your parents will have a better idea of what it is that's happening. You have to understand, to the youth that deal with this problem, do you want to go home to a war zone? You don't. Do you want to go home to your mom fuming, your dad angry? You're going to get some sadaqah? Like, no one wants to go home to that. So just try your best to be accessible to them. There was a sister, she said, man, my parents, they always this, that, and the third, and they always on my back. I asked her, how often do you just take 10 minutes of your time to just sit with your parents? Just 10 minutes, unprompted, to just go sit with them, just be around them, give them some proximity. It's like, I never do that. I was like, well, no wonder. They don't know what's going on with you. So the only time they talk to you is when they're mad at you, because it's the only time they can see you. So try to give them that extra time. Now, as for the problem child, for the kid that feels like my whole family is against me, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, it's always the same, you need to first and foremost remember exactly why Allah gave your parents such a great right over you. Every time you open the refrigerator, who put that in there? When you go to take a shower and the water is hot, do you know how that happens? It's not magic. Parents are spending their money and working every day to provide for you. That's why Allah gave them such a great right over you. When you didn't even know your own name or even the way to say it, they took care of you. and now that you can talk, you'll be disrespectful to them? That doesn't make any sense at all. So remember why Allah gave them that right. You know how much this costs every month? Especially when you downloading all those videos and streaming at any given place you can. Oh, no Wi-Fi, Bismillah. Do you know how much that is? Who pays for it? You probably never seen the bill. Say Alhamdulillah. Because that is your parents doing. So be grateful for that. And take it easy on them because they work hard for you. Even the clothes you got on, did you buy it? Like, think about it. And then remember how you actually have your parents. Rabbul Alameen, out of all of the human beings that are alive on the face of the planet, Allah picked that person to be your dad and that person to be your mom. So when you die and you go back to the one who put you here, and he asks you about the one he chose to be your parents, and you say that you treated them disrespectfully, how do you think your state will be then? Because Allah picks our parents, not us. And it's from His hikmah, not ours. So we should at least be respectful towards them. So think big picture. Would you rather be happy and at peace, or would you rather be miserable? You know, they have a saying in American culture, happy wife, happy life. If the wife is happy, then Bismillah, the husband can be happy too. But if she's upset, no one can be happy. So as kids, think about it like this. If my parents are happy, then Bismillah, I'll be happy. Dishes, that's 10 minutes. That's longer than most YouTube videos I watch. Let me just knock it out. Think about it from a logical perspective and it'll make things easy. Now we got to transition to the most important part. The youth's outlook. My parents are my greatest enemy. They're trying to stop me from doing good. That's how the religious kid feels. I'm just trying to do khair and my parents are like, no. My parents are just oppressive. They don't have anything better to do than to harass me. Once they finish that season of home suffer, all they want to do is get on my back. Now that they're done watching their TV show, all they want to do is just get on my nerves. That's all they want to do. Now parents are smiling. Don't you know I have a million things better to do than to bother you? What are you doing right now? See? My parents don't have any understanding of Islam and they're harming my deen. See, if they actually had ilm, then they wouldn't tell me not to do this. They wouldn't tell me not to do that. My parents are jahil. My parents are too cultural. They don't have any knowledge of the deen. That's how religious kids feel. Religious kids. Are these valid? I want you guys to notice something about this by the time we get to the end of the slide. My parents don't get me. They're way too cultural and they just don't listen. Even if I wanted to talk to them, they're not going to listen to me. My parents think they know everything, but they have no idea what's going on in my world. Yeah, back home. Yeah, when you were growing up. Yeah, I get it. But do you know what's going on today? My parents hold me to a standard that they don't even live by. They're telling me to do all this stuff and they don't do any of it. They're telling me to be this way and they're nothing like that. And last but not least, for the rebellious kid, I just want to live my life and I don't understand why my parents need to be involved. I just want to live my life. I don't know why they're always on my case. Why can't they just let me be? I just can't wait to get out of the house so I can finally do whatever I want. I'm going to apply to a college far away from here so that I can be on campus by myself. I don't have to look at them. What's the common trend in this? Anyone? Resentment. There's definitely a lot of hekad in that one. There's a lot of hatred coming from there, right? You see how the emotionality kicks in from the kid's side compared to from the parents? It's like a different type of feeling. It sounds angry. You can almost hear your kid saying it. But the thing about this is I, my, me. I, me, my. Me, 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 me. Because you know what it's like to be a kid. It's all about me. Me, 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 me. So, of course, everything seems like a personal attack. You're trying to do the best that you can, but they're just like, why are you doing this to me? They're victims. All of this is victim language. like they're being oppressed. Now that the parents have an understanding of the youth's outlook, parents, just like how you want those kids to take that feedback from the other slide, I want you to take this feedback too. You need to facilitate Islamic knowledge to your kids. How many parents spend thousands of dollars for their children to become huffaz? How many? Thousands of dollars for them to go to Islamic school. Thousands of dollars for them to, go to these different programs from Bayna to Qalam to Al-Hir, Shameless. How much money do we spend for our kids to learn about the deen? Now think about the opposite of that. Why do you need to go to that class? What are they teaching? Where did he study? Facilitate the knowledge to them. Because I want you to know that knowledge of this deen will benefit them in a way that nothing else will. If you have to worry about your children wanting to learn about Islam, then that is a good worry to have. Because at least they care. And that's more than half the battle. Just like how if your child wanted to be a doctor, you would go into debt to make it happen. If they want to learn about this deen, you should do the same thing. Because Allah will never ever let people who learn this deen and live it, Allah will never let them suffer. If that was the case, we wouldn't have Islam to this day. And being a sheikh don't mean being broke. I don't know where this ideology comes from. Maybe that's that back home stuff. But in America, 80% of masajid don't have imams. We're blessed here in Epic. There's plenty of job opportunities. And Muslims are generous. And that's where the salaries come from. This fear of poverty is kind of unhealthy. We come here to America for the American dream. Anybody who works hard, manifests destiny and all that jazz they teach you in social studies, anyone who works hard can be whatever they want. The key to success is not just being a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, an engineer, or IT and ComSci. Those are not the only paths to success. Otherwise, this country wouldn't function. Now, yes, McDonald's employs a lot of people, but that doesn't mean your kid will end up there if they learn this deen. In fact, that deen will keep them out of McDonald's, inshallah. And most importantly, we old. I don't have kids, okay? And I'm not really that old, but we're old. We may not be able to memorize Quran, but them with their young, spongy brains, alhamdulillah, they can do it. So let them do it. I may never open a book of fiqh. I'm old. Like, what am I gonna do with this fiqh book? All you need to know is fear Allah and obey the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Beta, it's not about all that extra stuff. Just believe in Allah. Kalimatu tawheed. Let them do that, because they will be the future flag bearers of this deen. And we need scholars. We need them. The same way you need a doctor for your body, we need doctors for our souls. And that's what people of knowledge are. So let them do it. Now, the easiest solution to children with bad friends is to help them get good ones. Sometimes parents don't bring their kids to the masjid. It's late, I'm tired, I don't want to go. And then you wonder why they hang out with Deontay. Because Deontay's right up the street. They can just go to Deontay's. Take them to the masjid. Especially in this community. You see kids everywhere. They'll fit in. Yeah, but they don't want to come. Just keep leaving them here. They'll fit in, trust me. And more important than that, help them be active and engaged in the masjid, in the Muslim community. Don't isolate yourselves. Too many parents live on an island where they only come to the masjid on Jumu'ah. No, bring them to the masjid. Let them see other Muslims. That's how you make friends. And parents, I want you to know, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. That's a Kentucky phrase. I'm from Kentucky. You have to be willing to give some leeway a little bit. If you have this totalitarian parent style, don't be surprised if your kids rebel all the way against you. Because that's normally what happens. You shackle and chain and, just open the door. What are you in here doing? If you take this approach to them, don't be surprised if they become sneaky. Don't be surprised if they're extra private. Give a little leeway. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. There was a kid whose parents grounded him for 3 years straight. 3 years straight. Anytime he did something, he'd get grounded. He said there was never 3 days that I went without getting grounded for something. They would take the TV, they would take my phone, they would take my video games. I couldn't go outside. He said for 1 year I was grounded from playing outside. The only time I could go outside is when I was walking from the bus stop to my house. So I would walk as slowly as I could because I knew when I got home I was just going to get grounded for any little thing. So the parents, they did counseling. Do you know the first thing the counselor said to the parents? Take your kid off of punishment. Take him off of punishment. Let him go outside and play. If you keep putting him in this environment, he's just going to get a lot worse. Because if you think putting him in prison day to day of his life, don't be surprised if he ends up in prison down the road. Because that's the type of institutionalization he has in his home. Now, obviously, that's an extreme example. So let's not come anywhere near that extreme. Okay? And let kids be kids. Because they are kids, and you know what it was like to be young. Unless the bills made you forget, because sometimes that happens. Bills can make you forget. Kids, you'll learn. Bills make you forget what it was like to be in school, what it was like to be a kid. They make you forget. But it's better for your kids to be around Muslims out late than for them to be with non-Muslims or doing something awful and you're not even aware of it. And it may be hard for those kids that you think are rebellious, but it's never too late. You should never ever give up on your children. Nuh alayhi salam, water's coming out of the sky. Now, how long did Nuh alayhi salam, how long did he give da'wah for? 950 years, the verse in Surah Al-Ankabut, chapter 29, verse number 19. 950 years, he gave da'wah. That's a long time. You think he gave da'wah all that time and he never talked to his son? No, rather, as a prophet, he would have prioritized his son. But in the last moment, his son what? What happened to his son? Y'all know the story. What happened? He didn't give up. Even after it was over, even after the rain stopped, he made dua. He didn't give up. Our parents, sometimes we give up too soon. And this is a sign for those who reflect. Luqman has his own chapter in the Quran. You start on the second page, from verse 11 to 19, you're going to see Luqman, he had some advice. Are you giving those types of advices to your kids? Or are you telling them something else? Read these stories, reflect on it, and put it in motion. Like I said, it's better for your kids to be out late with Muslims in a place where you know where they are than for them to be somewhere else and you have no idea what it is that they're doing. Yes, but midnight is too late. Just let them do it. Little bit of leeway. And then tomorrow you can tell them, I let you stay out late. Now get up and clean your room. Or next week you don't get to go. You're gonna rush to clean that room. Now, I didn't want this presentation to be very long, but I want it to be very clear. Okay? Because as Gandhi said, and he's non-Muslim, but Gandhi said it, and he's got some haqq to it. The chief merit of language is clarity. So we want to be clear. For us in society, we say it's too hard to practice Islam in the West. We say the masajid are not welcoming to us. And our sisters probably feel that the most. There's too much drama, there's too much politics. There's way too many cliques, there's way too many groups. I don't fit in there. But the solutions are practical. Muslims should not be Muslims' greatest enemy. I shouldn't have to come to the masjid and worry about you talking about me behind my back. Like, I need to come here and feel safe. We need to help each other because honestly, in this country, we're all we have. Muslims, we make up less than 1% of the American population. What, if we don't have each other, then who do we have? So we have to be there for each other. And never ever find an excuse, politics, drama, cliques, never find an excuse to not come to the best place on the face of the planet. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that the best place on planet Earth is the Masjid. It's the house of Allah. It doesn't matter what you think about who doing what, when, where, or how. That doesn't change the fact that Allah said this is the best place. Maybe those excuses that you have in your mind are a test of sincerity. Do you come to the house of Allah because it's the best place, or do you come to the house of Allah to sip the tea and indulge in all the extra stuff? Purify your intention and come here. And I want you all to know, wherever there's khair, shaitan is there. Wherever there's khair, shaitan is there. Every time. Of course, this is the house of Allah, and there's a lot of good things that can happen here. So of course, shaitan is going to come in and try to mess it up. Khinzab messes with the gaps of the musallin. He comes between the gaps of the believers. So even shaitan tries to find his way while we're praying. Khannas, coming and going, whispering at you. Of course he's going to be here. But at the end of the day, alhamdulillah to have a masjid. Alhamdulillah to be able to come here and not worry about being killed. This is a huge blessing. Don't take it for granted. Because on the day of judgment, all of the time that you could have come here and you didn't, subhanallah, how much regret will a person have? And then not bringing your kids, and then not letting your wife come, and then, so much regret. So never take advantage, or never be disrespectful of these blessings. So our closing point is this. Moving forward, we need to prioritize a few simple things to address the big three. Parents and kids, you need to be willing to listen and understand each other. Sometimes your kid will open their mouth and say stuff, and you're like, you are so wrong, you have no idea what you're talking about. But at least listen to them. Yeah, your parents may go on a long tangent, and you may not understand all of it, but at least be willing to listen and not cut them off and argue with them. Try to understand where they're coming from, because it's all coming from a place of love. And that should be sufficient for us to at least listen and try to understand. And we need to support each other. Parents, support your kids. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, but they still need your support. Kids, support your parents. Sometimes they're great when they buy you that new thing, and sometimes they're awful when they take it away. But support them nonetheless, because they're your parents. And last but not least, we have to stay united together. We should never ever find a reason to separate from one another. We should make every excuse under the sun to come together with each other. And if you all need help with the problem, use the resources that we have available to us in the Muslim community to address it. You know, the imam is not just for salah and fancy talks after fajr. You can talk to them. All that knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah is there so that they can help you with stuff like this. So use it and stay united, insha'Allahu ta'ala. So, are there any questions, comments, concerns, additions, omissions, suggestions, or objections to anything that we've shared tonight? Good. Now let's go put it into action, inshallah. We'd like to thank, our esteemed Imam Nadeem and Ustad Ba'jur, who isn't here now, and Yasser Qadi, who is traveling. May Allah bless our shuyukh. Ameen. Because, it's disrespectful for a person to come in someone else's masjid and to talk without speaking to the people who lead us in prayer and lead us in education. So we thank our imams and we thank our shuyukh for facilitating this opportunity. And we also thank the board for taking the time and consideration to say our community could benefit from something like this, so let's bring it. Do you know how many masajid would never do something like this? Too many. So we thank the Epic board and we thank the Epic core team for being willing to put this thing together and to let people know this is happening. May Allah reward them all. And last but not least, we thank all of you, because a talk is only as good as the audience. And alhamdulillah, you guys were a really good audience. So we ask Allah to bless each and every single one of you. And we ask Allah to make whatever difficulties you're facing in your life, as kids with your parents, as parents with your kids, we ask Allah to unite all of our hearts upon the Quran and the Sunnah, and to unite us with our beloved Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah. Barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar. Our uncle, he asked, what's in part 2? Part 2 is purely for the kids. Time management, resource management, how to be effective students and human beings, stuff like that.